My boyfriend has been living a double life, and now I am friends with his wife. I just found out my boyfriend has been living a double life. I was cooking breakfast when the phone rang, and when I answered the call, it was some random woman called Emily asking for my boyfriend. I asked her who she was, and she said Dan's wife. I paused, thinking I had misunderstood, so I followed up with, "Sorry, I must have misheard you. Did you just say Dan's wife?" And she laughed and said yes. "And who are you?" I tried to gather my thoughts. I said, "I'm Dan's girlfriend." "Dan's girlfriend? As in Dan Thompson?" "Yes," I said slowly. The phone went silent, and I heard a long sign before the line cut out. I put the phone down, my thoughts scrambling for reason. I ran upstairs and calmly walked into our bedroom. Dan was getting ready for work, so I sat on the bed watching him change. He asked, "Is everything okay?" I looked at him and said, "I was just on the phone to your wife." His head snapped around, eyes wider than I had ever seen them. "How did she sound?" he muttered. Taken aback, I said, "Confused at the idea of you having a girlfriend." He rolled his eyes and said, "We divorced years ago, think nothing more of it." He had never told me he was married before, and we have been together for 6 years, so I didn't believe him. Besides, he looked defensive. Something wasn't right, and even down to the way he stood looking at me reeked of guilt. I asked him if he had a second phone. He shook his head. I asked him if he had any secret children, a second mortgage, or any holidays planned to Disneyland. To that he laughed and said that I was the only woman in his life but neglected to answer my question about children, which immediately aroused my suspicion. He shortly went to work with a smile plastered on his face. I lured him into a false sense of security, kissing him as he left. But then I got to work. I turned the house upside down, inside out and back to front. I found 2 black suitcases I had never seen before hidden at the back of the wardrobe. One of them had a receipt inside from the Hilton in London, which we had never been to. That could have been for a work trip, but the bags were new. I went into the garage and emptied every box and bag I could find. Eventually, I found a set of car keys in an oil can, placed into a large stack of shelves. It was for a Ford Fiesta, which neither of us drove. I knew that there was a public car park nearby, so I took a walk up the road, pressing the car key, and sure enough, I saw the lights flare up in the furthest corner of the car park. I sat inside. It stank of smoke, which angered me even more because Dan told me he quit. I went through the glove compartment and I found an old flip phone, a wallet, and some red nail polish. Inside the wallet was a credit card, debit card, and train tickets. All of them belonged to Dan but registered to an address in London. I felt a pull in my stomach, a knock forming in the back of my throat as I reached a shaking hand over to the phone. There she was, a beautiful brunette with big brown eyes smiling up at me with Dan's arm around her. I sat back in the car. I couldn't breathe, heartbroken and numb. Gathering my composure, I gathered his things and went back to the house. I spent the day tidying my mess and being careful to place everything back. I cleaned the house, packed my bags, and left his second phone, wallet, and nail polish in the center of the kitchen table before leaving. Once in the car, I called his wife and agreed to drive down to see her. It took about 4 hours, and when I arrived, she was a mess. We talked through the night. Apparently, she didn't know about me. I met his little girl Hannah and heard stories about their marriage.